Welcome to Books for Success. Today, we're delving into the wisdom within Love Sense by Dr. Sue Johnson. Examine the foundations of love and the dynamics of emotional connections that underpin our intimate bonds. Get a fertilizer to nurture meaningful relationships for a happier, more content life. You'll learn why love truly makes sense, the power of attachment in love, secrets to lasting relationship satisfaction, strategies to rekindle deep connections. Before we begin, subscribe and ring the bell for notifications if you want to keep receiving the knowledge of book summaries about health, wealth, love, psychology, and much more. Don't be shy about dropping your book suggestions for us to summarize. Also, you can use this video as an audiobook summary. Let's grow and succeed together. Until recently, love was either not necessary or a mystery. People have always wondered what love was. Today, the most popular opinion is that love is a mystery. No wonder. How else can we describe a state that is messy, overwhelming, and euphoric at the same time? Evolutionary biologists, on the contrary, believe that love is just foreplay to reproduction. According to them, people mate to procreate, and the rest is history. However, the ancient Greeks equated romantic love, or eros, to sexual desire. So, who got it right? Nobody did. Modern psychology says that love is an intimate relationship between two adults who have a solid emotional connection. Emotional is the key word here. There is no denying that sex and parenthood are essential for couples. But to survive, we need secure emotional bonds. We are born helpless. Before we can take care of ourselves, we need constant supervision and support, which requires a lot of time and effort. Then why do our parents do that? Because their brains are programmed to have a deep emotional connection to their kids. Soon enough, babies get used to the idea that they need to depend on other people to stay alive. They start to respond to love, and for them, being held and protected is the most natural thing in the world. Unfortunately, that changes when we grow older. We are encouraged to value independence in Western cultures and underestimate meaningful relationships. We have humanoid robots instead of partners, pornography instead of sensual sex, and FaceTime instead of actual dates. In the United States, people live alone more than ever. At least 25% of Americans take drugs for anxiety and depression, and this percentage is not coincidental. It is the consequence of emotional detachment that is happening on a massive scale. When we were kids, our parents provided us with a haven. They loved us and came to our rescue whenever we needed them to. When we become adults, we also need to be cherished and cared for. The only thing that changes is that we can no longer rely solely on our parents. They grow older and begin to require our support. That is when our partners step in. Because in the modern world, where people become more and more disconnected from one another, having a meaningful romantic relationship might be the only way to be truly happy. Everything comes down to attachment. What is an attachment style? It is a template of how to interact with the people we love. Psychologists say that there are 3 primary attachment styles, and each is shaped by our relationships with our parents in childhood. They define how we treat our romantic partners when we grow up. Avoidance style. Avoidant people suppress their emotions because they are afraid to get hurt. They see others, even their partners, as potential sources of danger. That is why they rarely open up. An avoidant person tends to shut down and steer clear of real connections. They ignore relationship problems, and when the elephant in the room becomes too big, they probably just say, "Do whatever you want. I do not need you anyway." Even though avoidant people believe that they are worthy of love, they see others as inherently untrustworthy. They always await harm from their partners, and when the moment of crisis inevitably comes and proves their expectations, they say, "I knew it," and completely withdraw into themselves. In cases of breakups or loss, avoidant people distance themselves from everything that connected them to their partners and stay away from new relationships for a while. They are also disposed to use alcohol and drug use to deal with their pain. Anxious style. People with this attachment style fear abandonment and betrayal. They resemble scientists who always search for something to prove their hypothesis. But instead of reliable data, they need persistent reassurance that their partners love them. Anxious people doubt themselves every step of the way and are never sure whether they are lovable enough. They perceive their mates as gods and constantly seek their approval. When something goes wrong in internal relationships, they rarely reach out to their partners. Instead, they completely lose their minds and imagine the worst-case scenarios. They become suspicious of everything their partner says or does and start to view their romantic relationships badly. When it comes to breakups and loss, anxious partners tend to go off the deep end. They can egg cars, smash windows, and spay fences. Why? Because they are susceptible to rejection and abandonment. Secure style. This is the best style to achieve Zen in romantic relationships. People who can bond securely know how to maintain emotional balance. They are responsive, trusting, and accessible. For them, depending on their partner is a good thing. They appreciate loving contact and are not paranoid about being abandoned or betrayed. Secure people believe that they deserve love and that others do, too. Whatever the circumstances, they freely communicate with their partner and consider most relationship problems solvable. Interestingly, those with a secure attachment style also handle breakups and loss better. They rarely become aggressive or vindictive. In fact, it takes much less time to recover from stress and move on with their lives to be even stronger than before. Why should you know how various attachment styles work? Because then you can understand why people act the way they do in romantic relationships and what you can do to get along with them. The key to the best sex is an emotional connection. Sex is just sex. It has nothing to do with love. Right? In modern Western society, you might hear this argument a lot. People just seem to be too busy for romance. Instead, they adopt the routine of Samantha Jones from Sex and the City. They go to a bar, meet a stranger, have a joyful one-night stand, and then repeat the cycle every once in a while. The problem is that sex is not just about physical pleasure but also about emotion. Emotional closeness translates to more enjoyable sex that forges mutual trust in mature relationships. In other cases, when there is no connection between partners, sooner or later, sex just stops being fun. Remember the 3 attachment styles? They have a significant impact on what kind of sex we have. Sealed-off sex. This type of sex is common among avoidant people, particularly heterosexual and gay men who are not out of the closet. The goal here is to reach an orgasm and demonstrate sexual supremacy. The technique is praised more than openness and tenderness, and a partner's feelings are frequently dismissed as unimportant. Because this kind of sex evokes almost no emotional bonding, there is a never-ending demand for experimentation. New practices and partners help to restore the passion for a moment, but boredom soon returns, and the story repeats because of the lack of emotional closeness. Solace sex. This type of sex is prevalent among anxious people who constantly look for proof of love from their partners. There is a lot of passion and emotion to it with cuddling, kissing, tender touching, you name it. However, the predominant feelings that overshadow everything else are fear and apprehension. Anxious people use sex as a currency. They perform the best they can to buy love and acceptance from their partners and protect themselves from abandonment and rejection. Sometimes, they even can become disconnected and unresponsive in a quest to please their lover. Because of that, sex can cease to be good and turn into a strenuous duty. Synchrony sex. Securely attached people have the most enjoyable and orgasmic sex. They communicate their preferences and needs clearly and cherish emotional more than physical engagements. Because they trust their partners, they are more open and eager to sexual adventures and experiments. In any way, secure lovers know that their relationships remain as close and caring as before, no matter what happens in bed. They do not get bored of one another, and their emotional bond inspires them to be creative and passionate even as the years go by. Did you know? According to researchers from the American University, less than 25% of content couples believe that good sex is why they are happy. True love can last until death do us part. Love changes throughout our lives. Sometimes, it becomes stronger, and other times, it fades, and couples get divorced. What makes love last? Dr. Sue Johnson provides an overview of what couples face during their relationships and how they can stay together indefinitely. Dating. How do we know that we are in love with somebody? Do we simply experience a powerful sexual desire, or is there something else right from the beginning? Research shows that early love combines sex appeal and attachment yearning. Emotion plays a part in our romantic relationships from day one. Marriage. Marriage is the ultimate next step in romantic relationships. It signifies a formal transfer of attachment from parents to partners and grinds to a halt any fears about long-term commitment. Just a few decades ago, marriage was an economic exchange. In the 1990s, however, it became an emotional enterprise. People started to value love and bonding more than money and good homemaking. As a result, emotional responsiveness and dependency on one another became the key to healthy romantic relationships. Parenthood. Research from the University of Washington indicates that couples become 75% less content with their home lives just 3 years after the kids are born. They argue more, rarely have sex, and soon grow apart. Because of the never-ending tasks, they cease to communicate their feelings and share their most intimate thoughts. As a result, they are more likely to get divorced in 7 years than pairs that do not have kids. Secure couples develop emotional bonds before becoming parents to avoid this trap. But in unhappy pairs, partners are not there for each other. They are unresponsive, cold, and unable to ask for help, which leads to constant fights and habitual blaming of one another. Couples with secure emotional connections also undergo many troubles. Instead of screaming and making scenes, they support each other and remember that their love can endure more than occasional distress. Love at an older age. Despite their experience, older couples struggle just as much as younger ones. First, partners face the empty nest syndrome, revealing that they have nothing in common except for their kids. Second, they go through retirement when they suddenly have to spend much more time together when, in fact, they are total strangers. Third, one of the partners sooner or later has to deal with the loss of the other, which can lead to depression and hopelessness. Research shows that partners with a secure emotional bond overcome these problems less traumatically and emerge stronger. They know that they have each other to rely on, and this connection sustains them throughout their lives and makes their love last. Relationships sometimes get stuck in a vicious cycle. Every couple sometimes goes through a rough patch, but that is normal. Then why do some get so caught up in grievances that they split up? During therapy, partners usually give one of the 3 classic explanations. Men and women are just aliens. They simply cannot get along. We are not meant to be together. That is just destiny. Love is a nuisance. Our mission is to spread our genes and ensure the survival of humankind. But these excuses are not accurate, and here is why. From a biological perspective, men and women have a lot in common. The idea of the one is faux because no relationship is perfect. Love is real, and personal relationships do not have one universal goal. Then why do we break up? Deprivation. The drama unfolds when we lose emotional responsiveness. When our partner does not indulge our attempts to reconnect, we experience a loss of control and become defensive and disoriented. Suddenly, we end up deprived of love and support, making us vulnerable and confused. In no time, our dearest person turns into our greatest enemy. Criticism. When negative judgments step in, we attack our partners with critical comments that make them fearful and anxious. They try to withdraw to protect themselves but meet even harsher judgment from us. Soon, we end up in a vicious cycle of cynicism and hopelessness. Stonewalling. After criticism comes the worst part. Our partner completely shuts down and retreats to numbness, unable to withstand the constant criticism and blaming. The emotional bond is lost, the relationship abyss deepens, and we become enraged or go through intense grief. Feedback loop. Soon we end up in a never-ending feedback loop. We cease to notice or remember the positive things in our relationships. Instead, everything turns into a never-ending sequence of disappointment and anger. You can restore the connection. Even the most secure couples sometimes lose balance and face misattunement, but this is normal and inevitable. So, how do we ensure that occasional mishaps do not harm our relationships in the long term? What should we do to escape the endless loop of disconnect if we are already caught up in it? So, what exactly should we do? First, we should acknowledge that we are in a feedback loop. The cycle of negativity persists automatically. We have to pause and consciously accept that our mean comments and distant behavior are just expressions of fear and confusion. Second, We need to renew our emotional connection, and this is the most challenging part because it requires us to reach out to our partners and become as vulnerable as ever. But how do we do it? Tune in to restore the bond even if there is no immediate response from our loved ones. Make our communication as straightforward as possible to avoid further misunderstandings. Give our partner time to recover from stress. Maybe they have to face their demons before reaching out to us. Voice our emotional needs and hear what our partner has to say about them. Sometimes, their response may not be what we expected. In that case, we should try to react in a balanced way and be open to further discussion. The recovery process might not be immediate, but in no way is it impossible. Another way to strengthen a relationship after a rough patch is through hold-me-tight conversations that uncover hidden grievances and restore mutual trust. They consist of 5 steps. 1. First, we sincerely reveal our emotional pains. 2. Second, we listen to the concerns of our partners without prejudice and defensiveness and try to accept their feelings as valid. 3. Third, we articulate what hurt us most and clearly state our needs for the future. 4. Fourth, we ask each other for forgiveness. 5. Last but not least, we construct a new story of our disconnection that includes real feelings and concerns we both have. This should lay the foundation for the next stage in our relationships, marked by increased trust and mutual dependency. Voila! Conclusion. The only way to escape loneliness and depression in the modern world is to hold on to our partners. Relationships can be complicated. We need honest conversations, moments of closeness, and constant reminders that our romantic relationships are more precious than work and everyday chores. No wonder, as years go by, we become less passionate, get sucked into work and homemaking, and cease to communicate our feelings. In short, we lose sight of what is the most important thing in human lives: love. The good news is that it is seldom too late to restore the emotional connection that once nourished us and kept us going. Love is a dynamic process. There are constant ups and downs, and we must learn to depend on each other to withstand as partners. Sometimes, anxious and avoidant people can struggle to confide in their lovers. They might fear abandonment, rejection, or betrayal because their parents taught them to do so. But love is powerful enough to change these mental models. To overcome our fears, we must boost our courage to be vulnerable and tender around our partners and trust them not to hurt us. We must long for real bonding that cannot come from meaningless sex and internet porn. Love can last forever and be rewarding every step of the way. We just need to make it our purpose to commit to our partners and be there for each other for better or worse. Try this. Have a moment to reconnect with your partner. 1. Look them in the eyes and hold their hands. 2. Talk to them about your thoughts. 3. Smile and ask them how they are. These 3 simple steps might resync your relationship and heighten your mood. Thanks for being part of our insightful voyage. If our summary piqued your interest, we encourage you to dive into the complete book for a deeper understanding. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more content if you're new here, and share it with others who might find it valuable. Keep on reading, discovering, and advancing until our next adventure.